My sermon this morning is called Breathing Through Breathtaking Times. And for our reading, I'd like to share with you a poem by the African-American poet Ross Gay. The poem is an elegy for Eric Garner, who was killed in 2014 by a Staten Island police officer, and whose final words, "I can't breathe," became a rally cry for the Black Lives Matter movement. Ross Gay's elegy to Garner evokes these last words, as well as Garner's occupation as a horticulturalist with the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. The poem is called A Small Needful Fact. A small needful fact is that Eric Garner worked for some time for the Parks and Rec Horticultural Department, which means perhaps that with his very large hands, perhaps in all likelihood, he put gently into the earth some plants which most likely, some of them in all likelihood, continued to grow, continue to do what such plants do, like house and feed small and necessary creatures, like being pleasant to touch and smell, like converting sunlight into food, like making it easier for us to breathe. A couple of years ago, I lost an old friend of mine named Peter. In one of my last conversations with him before he died, Peter passed on to me some wisdom that has meant a great deal to me and that I'd like to share with all of you this morning. Wisdom for how we can live strong, resilient, spiritually grounded lives, even in the midst of the pain and brokenness of our world. But first, let me just back up and briefly explain that Peter and I met about 25 years ago, just as I was starting out in the ministry at All Souls Church in Washington, D.C. Peter was the church sexton. He cared for our building. But he was an interesting fit for the sexton role. You see, not only did Peter have lots of practical skills as a handyman and carpenter, he was also a committed Buddhist and meditation teacher. So Peter was the rare church sexton who could, and often did, fix the church boiler by day and then turn around and teach a mindfulness class at night. Over the years we worked together at All Souls, Peter would often make an appointment to speak with me, but it was never to talk about the church's leaky roof or spotty air conditioning. Peter always wanted to discuss matters of the Spirit. He'd sit down in my office in the chair across from me and say, "So, Rob, how is it with your soul?" It seemed a strange reversal for the sexton to be asking the minister that question. But that's who Peter was. And our soul conversations continued for nearly 20 years, long after Peter retired from church. In the last year of his life, Peter developed a debilitating nerve disease that left him in constant pain. Even a gentle touch or embrace was too painful for him to bear. Yet when I met with Peter for what turned out to be the last time, he seemed at peace. When he saw me, he smiled weakly and said, "So, Rob, how is it with your soul?" Gradually, the conversation turned to Peter's well-being and to his difficult struggle with the pain. And I asked him, "Peter, what has sustained you spiritually through this ordeal that you're suffering?" And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, "Rob, the pain has stripped everything away, but two things remain: the love of my family and friends, and my breath. When all else fails, breathing is what still brings me peace and connects me to spirit," he said. He explained to me that when his pain was too much to bear, he would close his eyes and count out 4 breaths. And then he'd start all over again. Over and over. It was all he could muster, but it was enough. Peter told me that while his breathing didn't relieve his pain, it allowed him to bear it, to move through it, and to connect with the source of life and peace beyond his pain. When I reflected later on our conversation, I felt as though Peter had blessed me with a simple but life-giving piece of wisdom. Here was a man whose spiritual journey had taken him all over the world, to India and to East Asia, studying many traditions and many practices, yet when it mattered most, when he came to the end of his life, the thing that sustained his spirit was something as near to him, as native to him as his own breath. Peter reminded me that long after we lose our ability to kneel and pray, or do yoga or tai chi, or take long walks in nature, or even come to church, long after our bodies lose the ability to do these things, what remains, and what's always been there for us, is our breath. Our first and most faithful spiritual guide. In these difficult times, we would do well to befriend our breath and learn from it. Our breath has much to teach us. Every time we breathe in, we are reminded that our very survival depends on resources beyond our own body, beyond ourselves: the air, the trees and plants, the earth, one another. Breathing with intention can help us cultivate gratitude for all that upholds and sustains our life. Every time we breathe out, we're giving something back to the world, impacting it, changing it. Each breath then reminds us of our sacred responsibility to the great web of life. Our breath reminds us that we aren't merely minds or spirits, but bodies too. Miraculous bodies. Bodies that convert oxygen into life. Bodies that feel and that hold generations of memory and experience. Vulnerable bodies that needed to be tended and cared for. Bodies that live and bodies that die. By taking us out of our heads and into our bodies, our breath helps us dwell here, in the present moment. Do you ever notice how our minds are always either regretfully living in the past or anxiously anticipating the future? our poor minds can hardly help themselves. But our breath always has the power to call us back to the here and now, to this place, to this time where life actually happens. Will you take a moment right now to breathe with me? Can we do that together? Whether you're here in the meeting house or zooming in from home, I just want to invite you to make yourself comfortable and to perhaps place your feet on the floor. And maybe straighten your back a little bit. A posture that's both comfortable but also alert. And if you'd like, I invite you to close your eyes. And let's begin by just taking a couple of deep, cleansing breaths together. From way down in our diaphragm. After a couple of those deep breaths, just breathe naturally now. In and out. No need to force anything. As you breathe in, feel the air flow in through your nose. Feel your diaphragm gently expand and contract. Notice how natural breathing comes. What a gift. What a blessing. Now, as you breathe in, if you can, imagine that you are breathing in peace. With each inhalation, imagine inviting a sense of peace into your body. Allow yourself to dwell for a moment in that peace. And as you breathe out, imagine you are breathing out love. Sharing your love with the world. Breathe in peace. Breathe out love. Breathe in peace. Breathe out love. Thank you for taking a moment to breathe together. I try to make a habit of breathing mindfully every day, often in the morning or during a break in my day. Sometimes if I'm in a stressful situation, work or parenting, I'll deliberately pause and take some time out to breathe. And here's what happens to me. My pulse slows. My anxiety quiets down. My body unclenches. My mind clears a little. I feel myself more receptive to the Spirit's presence in my life. It's a simple practice that has served me well, and as my friend Peter reminded me, it is a durable practice that can see us through the most difficult of times. Which is why I'm offering this message now, friends. Because we are living through what I think of as breathtaking times. Times that are breathtaking in their injustice, breathtaking in their violence and cruelty, breathtaking in their potential to change forever life on earth as we know it. And I can see how this is taking a toll on folks, on all of us. It's like we've had the spiritual wind knocked out of us. People are anxious and distracted and afraid. And you know what? The forces that are wreaking havoc on our world are counting on us to remain anxious and distracted and afraid. In breathtaking times, breathing can be an act of resilience and resistance. When we are frightened and anxious, our breath can calm us. When we are scattered, our breath can focus us. When we are tired, our breath can revive and refresh us. Not too long ago, an activist friend of mine said to me, taking a breath is the one act of self-care that you can do anytime and anywhere. Friends, this is how we need to show up for the world in these breathtaking times. Our broken and beautiful world needs us to show up spiritually grounded and strong, present and aware, purposeful and resilient, ready to protect and defend everyone's right to the breath of life. The simple act of breathing can help us be that kind of strong, resilient, courageous people. And you know what? Our breath offers us one final life-saving lesson in these breathtaking times. It reminds us that we never breathe alone. If this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that for better or worse, we are always breathing together the same air on the same earth. We are inextricably bound by our breath to every other living thing. In a sense, then, every breath we take is a kind of communion. Or better yet, a conspiracy. To conspire means to breathe together. It also means to plot. And I think we need to be conspirators now in both senses of that word. Always hatching our plots for the good and the just. Always breathing together. Because our good efforts will only succeed if we remain grounded and strengthened by our breath and its power to connect us to Spirit. So friends, keep breathing. Keep breathing together. And with every breath we take, may we summon the courage and resilience to resist and to thrive in these times that threaten to take our breath away. We're not going to let it happen. Amen.